it didn't begin with words. It began with silence. The kind of silence that settles in a room after something heavy has happened, when no one knows what to say, and saying nothing feels safer than saying the wrong thing. Ginny was quiet that day. Not the calm, thoughtful quiet people were used to, but a withdrawn stillness that lingered around her like a shadow. Those who knew her well noticed it immediately. Those who didn't sense something was off, even if they couldn't name it. Jayna noticed first. She didn't rush in. She didn't ask questions in front of others. She didn't try to fix anything. She simply stayed close, physically near, emotionally available, waiting without pressure. It was a small choice, but it became the turning point of everything that followed. For a long time, Ginny had been the strong one, the dependable one, the person who showed up smiling even when things were difficult behind the scenes. People assumed she could handle anything. And because of that, very few ever thought to ask if she needed help. Jayna did. Not out loud, but through presence. That's why their bond feels different. When the moment finally broke through, it wasn't dramatic. There were no raised voices, no public tears, just a quiet crack in Ginny's composure that most people would have missed if they weren't paying attention. Her voice faltered. Her eyes avoided the room. Her hands trembled just slightly before she folded them together. Jayna moved closer without hesitation. No cameras were meant to capture that moment. No one expected it to matter. But fans noticed later the way Jayna angled her body toward Ginny, the way her attention never drifted, the way she stayed even when others moved on. It wasn't performative. It wasn't careful. It was instinctive. And instinct reveals truth. From that day on, something shifted. Not in a loud, obvious way, but in the rhythm between them. Ginny seemed lighter when Jayna was nearby. Jayna seemed more protective, more attuned. They didn't suddenly become inseparable, but there was a new layer of understanding beneath everything they did together. People started describing it as real because it didn't look perfect. Their interactions weren't polished. They weren't exaggerated for effect. Sometimes they were quiet together. Sometimes awkward. Sometimes warm in ways that felt almost private. Jayna never tried to speak for Ginny, but she made space for her. Ginny didn't lean on Jayna excessively, but she trusted her presence. That balance is rare. Behind the scenes, those who worked with them noticed it too. There was a calmness when they shared space, a sense that things didn't need to be said to be understood. When Ginny struggled, Jayna adjusted without being asked. When Jayna took the lead, Ginny followed without resistance. There was no competition, only coordination. Fans began sharing clips, not to speculate wildly, but to highlight moments of care. A glance, a pause, a hand hovering close, ready but not intrusive. Comment sections filled with words like comfort, safety, and support. Not romance, not drama, support. And that's what made it powerful. Because in an industry where relationships are often defined by spectacle, Ginny and Jayna's bond grew in the quiet spaces, in moments that weren't meant to be consumed, in choices that didn't ask for attention. The silence between them was never empty. It was full of trust, and the support that followed wasn't loud or public. It was steady, consistent, real. That's why people believe in it. Because when Ginny went quiet, Jayna didn't disappear. She stayed. And everything changed. As time went on, that quiet moment stopped being just a memory and started becoming a pattern. The silence that once felt heavy between Ginny and Jayna slowly transformed into something calmer, something safe. It wasn't the kind of silence that came from avoidance anymore. It was the kind that comes when two people understand each other well enough that words aren't always necessary. Ginny began to open up, not publicly, not dramatically, but in small, meaningful ways. She laughed a little more freely when Jayna was around. Her posture relaxed. The guarded expressions softened. People who had known Ginny for a long time noticed the change before anyone else did. They couldn't point to a single reason, but they could feel it. Something had shifted inside her. And Jayna remained exactly the same. She didn't take credit. She didn't position herself as the reason for Ginny's strength. She simply continued to show up with the same quiet consistency. If Ginny spoke, Jayna listened. If Ginny withdrew, Jayna gave space without leaving. That balance between closeness and respect was what made their bond feel so grounded. There were moments when Ginny struggled again. Healing was never linear, and Jayna never pretended it was. On difficult days, she didn't push Ginny to be cheerful or productive. She didn't rush her through emotions. She stayed beside her, letting the process take the time it needed. That kind of patience is rare, and people sensed it even when they couldn't see it clearly. Fans began to talk less about what might have happened and more about what they were witnessing now. The narrative shifted from curiosity to appreciation. People weren't asking for explanations anymore. They were grateful to see a bond built on empathy rather than drama. In shared spaces, Ginny and Jayna didn't seek each other out loudly. They didn't cling. They didn't isolate themselves either. Instead, they moved with an unspoken understanding. When one spoke, the other paid attention. When one needed space, the other respected it. It was subtle, but it was constant. And constancy is what makes something feel real. Over time, Ginny's confidence returned, not as a mask, but as something steadier. She no longer felt like she had to carry everything alone. That didn't make her weaker. It made her lighter. Jayna never became her shield, but she became something just as important, a reminder that support doesn't have to be loud to be strong. Those who work closely with them describe their dynamic as easy. Not exciting in a flashy way, but reassuring. There was no tension, no guessing, just trust. The kind of trust that allows people to be themselves without fear of being misunderstood. And perhaps that's why their bond resonates so deeply. Because it reflects something people rarely see but deeply want. A connection rooted in presence, not performance. In patience, not pressure. In staying, especially when leaving would be easier. Ginny didn't need saving. Jayna didn't try to be a hero. She simply stood beside her in the silence. And when Ginny was ready, support followed naturally. That's why their bond feels real. Because it wasn't built in the spotlight. It was built in the quiet moments no one thought to script. As their bond continued to unfold, people began to understand that what connected Ginny and Jayna wasn't a single moment of comfort, but a series of choices made quietly over time. Choices to stay present. Choices to listen without judgment. Choices to protect each other's dignity even when emotions ran close to the surface. Ginny, who once carried everything inward, started allowing herself to be seen, not fully exposed, but honestly human. She no longer felt the need to explain every feeling or hide every struggle. With Jayna nearby, there was permission to pause, to breathe, to exist without performing strength. That permission alone changed the way Ginny moved through the world. Jayna, meanwhile, never shifted into the spotlight of that change. She remained steady, careful not to overstep, careful not to claim a role she never asked for. Her support wasn't about control or reassurance. It was about trust, trust that Ginny knew her own pace, and trust that being there was enough. Small moments kept reinforcing that truth. A glance exchanged across a room when things felt overwhelming. A quiet check-in that didn't demand an answer. A shared smile that said, "You're not alone," without saying anything at all. These moments weren't captured because they were dramatic. They were captured because they were human. And that's what made fans hold on to them. People weren't projecting fantasies anymore. They were recognizing care. Over time, even the silences between Ginny and Jayna changed texture. They were no longer heavy or uncertain. They became comfortable, filled with understanding rather than tension. The kind of silence that exists when two people trust each other enough to simply sit together without needing distraction. That comfort began to show in their work as well. When they shared space professionally, there was a sense of calm that grounded the environment. Others felt it too. Conversations flowed more easily. Pressure softened. The energy shifted, subtle but undeniable. Observers often said it felt like watching two people who had learned how to carry each other without burden. Neither leaned too hard. Neither pulled away. They adjusted naturally, responding to what the other needed in the moment. And that's where the bond became something more than a story. It became a reminder. A reminder that support doesn't always arrive as solutions or speeches. Sometimes it arrives as silence shared, as patience given, as someone choosing to stay when things feel uncomfortable or uncertain. Ginny didn't become stronger because Jayna fixed anything. She became stronger because she didn't have to face things alone. Jayna didn't become important because she was seen. She became important because she saw. That's why people believe in their bond. Because it reflects a kind of connection that isn't loud, isn't dramatic, and isn't performative. It's steady. It's respectful. It's real. And as long as Ginny and Jayna continue to move with that quiet understanding, their story won't fade. It will remain, not as a rumor, not as speculation, but as an example of what genuine support looks like when it's given without conditions. As the bond between Ginny and Jayna continued to deepen, it became clear that what they shared had grown beyond a response to a difficult moment. It had turned into a quiet rhythm they both understood, one built on awareness rather than explanation. Ginny no longer hesitated the way she once did. When uncertainty crept in, she didn't retreat as far inward. She trusted that if she faltered, she wouldn't be judged or rushed. That trust changed how she carried herself. There was a steadiness in her presence now, not because everything was suddenly easy, but because she knew she didn't have to navigate things alone. Jayna remained constant, but never overwhelming. She didn't hover. She didn't withdraw. She simply adjusted. When Ginny needed space, Jayna respected it without disappearing. When Ginny needed grounding, Jayna was there without making it about herself. That kind of emotional intelligence doesn't come from obligation. It comes from care. People around them began to notice how natural their connection felt in everyday moments. Not during highlights or planned appearances, but during transitions, the moments in between. Waiting quietly, standing side by side, sharing a brief look that said more than words ever could. Those moments weren't dramatic, but they stayed with people. Fans started describing their bond as safe, a word rarely used lightly. Safe didn't mean boring. It meant reliable. It meant gentle. It meant real. And what made it resonate even more was how neither Ginny nor Jayna tried to define it publicly. They didn't label it. They didn't explain it. They allowed it to exist as it was, trusting that those who needed to understand it would. Over time, Ginny's growth became visible, not as a transformation meant for applause, but as a quiet return to herself. Her confidence felt rooted instead of forced. Her smiles came easier. Her silences felt peaceful instead of heavy. Jayna never took credit for any of it, but her presence had clearly made a difference. Jayna, too, seemed changed, not louder, not bolder, but more assured. Standing beside Ginny hadn't dimmed her light. It had strengthened it. She moved with calm purpose, knowing that support given sincerely always returns in quiet ways. What people ultimately connected to wasn't mystery or speculation. It was recognition. Recognition of a bond built on patience, on respect, on staying when walking away would have been simpler. Ginny and Jayna didn't need a moment to prove anything. Their story unfolded in the everyday choices, to listen, to wait, to remain. That's why their bond feels real, because it wasn't formed in front of an audience. It was formed in trust.